Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up, Mixed Combat Radio family? It's been a minute, but we're back with a lot of fights to talk about. And fights where, like, I think I got most of them wrong in terms of, like, my predictions, even though we didn't do prediction shows, obviously, due to, like, us not doing a show. I feel like most of them I probably got wrong. Canelo, Bivol got wrong. Katie Taylor, Serrano, I kind of got wrong.
No, you didn't.
No, I was edging Serrano.
Yeah. That fight went exactly how I thought it would. I should have picked Katie Taylor by grave injustice because I knew that was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. What's the outcome? Katie Taylor by grave injustice. It's almost like the rematch with Chocolatito and Estrada. It's such a good fight, but the verdict ruins it. Like, the wrong person got the decision. A great fight, right? No doubt. Great fight. Candidate for Fighter of the Year. No question. But no one, Katie Taylor didn't win that. Get out of here, Katie Taylor won that fight.
Yeah, we're gonna
There's
get to
no
it.
way no one thinks Katie Taylor won that fight.
I mean, there was the judges that thought she won the fight, so there is that.
It's like every judge in the Canelo fight scored the first 4 rounds for Canelo. How come no one watching the fight had it that way, but the 3 judges did? Now, the judges ultimately got the winner right, but who had Canelo up 4-0 after 4?
No.
All 3 judges.
Hey, boxing. Shout out to the sport. Obviously hit the like button, show the show, all that stupid stuff to do. A lot to get into, so let's not waste any time. I'm Matthew Hunter, joined by the one and only Gary in Dallas over at Texas Boxing Scene. Definitely go check out that channel, subscribe, all that fun stuff as well. Gary,
my boy Charles Hatley fought last night, and I went to check out my boy. Remember Charles Hatley?
How do you do?
Iced, man. He got iced. Second round, brutal left hook from the bleachers. Like, how'd you not see that coming?
I had a friend who fought Charles Hatley back in the day and got knocked out by Charles Hatley. And I remember a lot of people thinking like he was going to be something. He was going to be like a, good, like a Ryan Martin type.
He got a world title shot. He just got blown out by Lil Charlo.
Hey, Lil Charlo's not going to be Lil Charlo anymore, man, because he's the one on the pound for pound rankings probably now. Let's be honest. But digressing, Gary, let's talk about Canelo Bivol. Let's be honest. The pound for pound king, our boy Canelo, lost. And a fight I don't think anyone really, except for like maybe a few people, picked against him. And Bivol dominated. Like, honestly speaking, Bivol won anywhere from like 8 to 10 rounds, probably, give or take, right? Maybe even 11 if you really like want to be harsh, I guess, against Canelo.
I think I had it 10-2. I might have had it 9-3. It was either 9-3 or 10-2. I mean, you could give it. You could go 8-4. That's fine. But it was clear that Bivol had won at least 8 rounds, and it was clearly the winner. And it looked like Canelo had a really good 9th round. It's like, okay, if he closes the show here, if he sees momentum and he wins the last 4, 9th, and then the last 3, does he have enough rounds? Like, did he win 3 in the first, 8? And then that was it. Bivol dominated the last 3 rounds. It's like, wow, I was kept expecting for Canelo to break Bivol down, and Bivol never broke down.
Well, I mean, you're right. And there was a point in the fight, or maybe it was like the 10th round or like the 11th round, where it was late. Where like where you had that strong 9th round Canelo, and I thought, okay, he's gonna get some momentum here, win the last rounds, maybe even get a finish, like sort of like Sergey Kovalev, right? That didn't happen. And I think clearly the reason why it didn't happen is because Canelo wasn't really landing anything clean. I mean, there was many times where Canelo would come in with a combination or come in with a strong punch, and it would just land on the arms, land on the gloves of Bivol. And it would seem, at least to me, especially in those later rounds, that Canelo was desperate because he would just be winging shots. And you can tell there was really no thought in shot placement, accuracy. And Bivol was able to just counter that easily. Like, there's a clip that kind of went viral of, I think it was late in the fight, of Canelo coming at Bivol along the ropes. And Bivol caught a shot on the elbow, countered it perfectly with a 1-2. And that was kind of the story of the fight, where, like, Bivol was just sharper than Canelo. I don't know if Canelo fell in love with the power. I don't know if the weight class is just not there. I don't know if Bivol is really just that good, because, I've always kind of diminished Bivol's potential because I haven't been that impressed by him, to be quite honest. But Gary, I mean, your thoughts on like the X's and O's of the fight, your thoughts on what to make of it now.
There was absolutely no reason to think Bivol was going to win this fight. He had fought once in 2019 against Lenin Castillo, won the fight clearly, won wide, had trouble with Lenin Castillo in spots. Then almost blew the fight to LaRon Richards, where he lost the second half of the fight and Richards just ran out of rounds. Like if that was an old school 15 fight, Richards wins. It's LaRon Richards, a good fighter, but you don't lose LaRon Richards and then beat Canelo, right? And then he fought Usmanov, and he looked okay, right? He didn't look like a killer. It was better than his last two fights, but it wasn't good. Like it wasn't like, wow, he's gonna beat Canelo. There was no reason to think Bivol was gonna win this fight, and that's why when you ask me, like, no, Bivol's really good. My brother, my brother, same day as the Kentucky Derby, took a beating on the Kentucky Derby, right? Like lost a ton of money. He calls me up. He goes, "What chance does Bivol have?" I did the math in my garage last night. Bivol has a 0.00 chance to win this fight. He's like, so should I bet on Canelo? It's not worth betting on Canelo, right? Like it's not worth betting on Canelo because it doesn't pay. Like he doesn't bet so much. Like I don't know, he could get disqualified or something. You lose your money. Like I mean, it's just not worth it. And then so my brother's like, so you tell me there's a 0% chance Bivol wins? Like zero, none. He's not going to win. So my brother put a huge bet on Canelo to make up the money that he lost in the Kentucky Derby, and then lost all of it. It's like, well, I told you not to bet because it wasn't worth it. I would never thought in a million years Bivol was going to win that fight. And the way he won it, like I said, he was dominant, right? Like the first couple rounds were pretty close, and then I would say in the fifth round on, with the exception of the ninth round, Bivol dominated the fight. Like he was frustrating Canelo. And I've always said the way to fight Canelo is not what everyone was doing, which was getting in your back foot and running from him. You can't fight him that way because he's too good at slipping on the inside. He's going to get inside on you. He's good at cutting off the ring, and he's going to break you down. You can't run. It's not an amateur fight. It's not 3 rounds. You can't run from him for 3 rounds. You're going to have to stand and fight him. If you run from him for 12 rounds, you're going to get tired. He's going to break you down. He's going to knock you out, and that's what's been happening. Bivol stood in. Then they're after 12 rounds in a phone booth, but he stood his ground, right? He didn't go and retreat the entire time like Billy Joe and Caleb Plant, right? And he didn't break down. And he was able to keep him at bay with his jab. And when Canelo did get on the inside, Bivol held his own on the inside until he could, tie him up and reset. It was a really, I would say that performance and Bam Rodriguez's performances are the best performances of the year. Like it was so good. There's nothing you could criticize about it.
I'm about to say like Bam's is better, but that's only because of the weight jump, right? For Bam, honestly speaking, and like the experience factor. But beating the pound for pound best fighter in the world, I mean, means a lot more. I will say this: a few comments in the chat I want to address. Santiago, shout out to Santi. Hope you're doing well, brother.
Who I got to hang out with when I was in California for what fight was that? What fight was that, Santiago?
What fight were you at? Was it recently?
A couple months ago.
You didn't want to say hi to me?
I told you I was there. I was asking if you. It was Virgil Ortiz when Virgil Ortiz didn't fight. So it was
Oh, that's right.
It was
Yes.
It was Blair Cobb was the main event with
Alan Rocha.
Rocha, yeah, Alex Rocha.
Yeah, I didn't go to that event for obvious reasons. Blair Cobb's.
When I applied, it was Virgil. Virgil backed out. We got sick, pulled out a week before the fight.
That is true. That's true. It's smart though. That was a waste of a fight. That was a waste of a fight for him. Let's be honest.
I watched tape on Michael McKinson. I was like, wow, this guy is tailor made to be posterized by Virgil Ortiz. Like he just leans into things, just jumps into things, hands down, chin out. It's like, oh boy, this is gonna be brutal.
I hope he gets paid well whenever that fight happens. If it happens at this point.
I don't think it'll happen at this point.
Yeah.
It could. I mean, why though? Right? Like we saw him against who did he end up fighting? It was a decent, but it was a lightweight who moved up 2 weight classes. It was
I don't remember, Gary.
But he looked like, I mean, you're gonna put this guy in the ring with Verge? Like, come on. Like
Santiago in the chat saying that Canelo we saw versus Bivol remind him a lot of the 155-pound Canelo. It did seem like Canelo that didn't have the head movement as on point as in recent fights. But I kind of chalk that up more to Bivol being on point with the jab. Because Bivol's jab set the tone for everything. It's what allowed him to get off on all of his shots. It's what allowed him to sort of dictate the range and the tempo of the fight. And it's why Canelo, I don't think, ever really could get set and throw his combinations with the right angle, the right accuracy, because he was always getting hit with the jab, having to adjust to it, and he wasn't adjusting properly. Just want to point that out. Also, Frank over on Twitch, shout out to you, Frank, saying Team Canelo back-to-back Fat L's. Yeah, Eddie Renesso went from trainer of the year to taking, 3 big losses. It's not just back-to-back, it's back-to-back-to-back. It's Valdez, it's Martinez, and Canelo. Now, of course, 2 out of 3 should have won, and no one really picked Oscar Valdez. But still, I mean, come on. That's 3 big L's for Eddie Renesso. Not looking so good for him. Derek James, though, maybe trainer of the year this year. That's what it looks like. What else? Heath in the chat. Heath, hope you're doing well, brother. I hope you're doing well, man. It's been a while. Talking a lot of shit in the chat, I see, though. I don't know why. You go MIA for like 6 months. You come back talking shit, Heath. I see that. Saying that, how dare, or he was shocked that anyone was picking Canelo. Everyone's picking Canelo, Heath.
Who didn't pick Canelo?
I know like one person.
And that was just a hater who picks against Canelo every fight, right? Like that.
No,
he picked
no.
Billy Saunders. No, okay.
No. It was a more of a pick of like, these things are going to happen. Like fighters are going to take L's. Like Canelo's been on a run. He's going to take an L. Bivol's not that bad. You know what I mean? That was sort of their point of like talk to me. They're like, you're downplaying Bivol's talent because he's had some off nights against guys that really weren't that good and probably didn't get him up. And I'm like, okay.
He almost blew the fight to Richards. Like he almost gave enough rounds away at the end that he almost lost that fight. Like everyone had either 115, 113, or 114. He gave away like 4 or 5 rounds at the end of that fight. Like, you pick Bivol, you got lucky. Like there was no logical reason to think he was going to beat Canelo, right? Like it would be like if you picked the Atlanta Hawks to win the Eastern Conference. Like there's no, I mean, if that happened, you got lucky. There was no reason to think that. I picked Boston and Golden State to be in the finals. By the way,
are they in the finals?
It's the conference finals now.
Okay, I didn't know, Kerry. Sorry.
One step away. But Boston had to beat Milwaukee, and they beat Milwaukee today in 7. That was really the toughest series.
Dude, I miss watching basketball. I wish I had time to watch basketball. It's been nonstop work for me. June 4th, guys. Anyone in the LA area, June 4th, hit me up for tickets.
And then we'll do a show on June 6th. The
son of Hector Camacho on our card, fighting an undefeated California prospect. I love it.
Yeah, that's a good. That's
right. Like that's a little bit. Christian Camacho is like 9-1-1, and he's fighting Alexis De Luna, who's 9-0.
So who's gonna win?
I mean, gun to my head, Gary, I'm probably gonna pick Alexis De Luna.
Yeah.
But I mean, Camacho took it like that was the first fight that was offered to him, and he took it. So hey, shout out to him, man. Frank in the chat saying, "How do I get tickets?" Tickets can be found at Ticketon, ticket, and then ON at the end, like ticketon.com for rep promotions, and also they have pay-per-view on Viva Live TV. But just get tickets; it's easier. And plus, we're gonna have like this. We got this caterer to come out, and they make the best food and alcoholic beverages. So I recommend it. But digressing.
I'm looking at this internet meme that has like a side-by-side picture of Aaron Rodgers, and then on the other side, it's Chris Middleton, who didn't play in the series, by the way, high-fiving Greek Freak, and it says Wisconsin teams choke in the playoffs. I just want to point out that everyone in that picture has won a championship. Just saying.
Frank saying I'm there. Frank, dude, DM me, man. Like if you're on Twitter, DM me. Obviously, my at's like right there on all social media. So Instagram, Twitter, DM me, man. I could probably get you like a discount because like why not? I can probably do that.
Yeah, because it's
fucking MCR family. Of course I'm gonna do that. Yeah, not a big discount, but I'll get you a discount.
Get you a free soda on me.
Digressing. What we were talking about, Canelo, Bivol. I hope the rematch happens, and I hope it happens at 168. Because Bivol saying he'll go down to 168 and take his belts is one of those badass things I've heard from a boxer recently. And he could do it. Like, I've always thought Bivol should go down to 168. I've always thought he's a little bit undersized for 175. I I thought, certain fights at 168 just made a lot more sense at the time, especially like Callum Smith, who was a amateur rival. But I will say this. If Bivol does go down to 168 and fights Canelo and wins, he's immediately pound for pound number one. We just have to put him there out of like respect. And two, he immediately needs to go back up to 175 and fight Better Beef. Because
Joe Smith Jr., who he already beat. But if Joe Smith Jr. wins that fight,
he's not.
Better Beef is so good defensively, he can't possibly get cracked by Joe Smith Jr., right? Like, that's out of the realm of possibility.
Dude, we've seen Joe Smith look really, really suspect lately.
But it's just stylistically, I think it's a good fight. I'm not picking Joe Smith to win. I'm going to pick Better Beef to win. But I think stylistically, it's a good fight for Joe Smith Jr. You got someone who likes to come in and kind of bull rush you. Yeah, he can walk into something. Just like I said that, I picked Dillian White over Povetkin, but I said, Povetkin could knock him out. That could happen. Like, Joe Smith Jr. could knock out Better Beef. Like, Better Beef is not a good defensive fighter.
He could.
You could walk into something. I'm not betting on that to happen.
Exactly. Frank in the chat saying no rematch. Canelo needs to fight Andrade, Charlo, Benavidez. Canelo does not need to do anything in boxing because he's the biggest earner in the sport. So if he wants to do a rematch, he's going to get it. Like, even if you think like meritocracy should rule in boxing, one, that it just doesn't exist. Like, meritocracy has never existed in boxing. Two, even on that, it's Canelo Alvarez. Like, the run he just went on, 2 division simultaneous champion, like, whatever we want to say about him, like, and his drug use in the past, the guy has been on an absolute tear. And he lost a fight against a guy that's 2 divisions higher than him naturally. So if he wants a rematch, fucking go for it. And it wasn't like it was a bad fight. I didn't think it was a bad fight.
There was a rematch clause in the contract. So if he wants it, it's obligated. Like, Bivol's obligated to fight him. Like, that was part of the deal when Bivol got the fight. Canelo's got exit, which I'm sure Canelo will. I think Canelo will win the rematch. Canelo thinks he could beat this guy. This is not like Joshua versus Usyk, where Joshua keeps pushing it off. Like, I don't really know if I want this fight. Canelo will take the rematch, and I think, and we'll find out. I think Canelo will win. If I were Bivol, I would say let's do it at 75 because I beat you at 75. Why am I gonna? I don't know who. I talked to Bivol before Joe Smith Jr. He says he's gonna walk into the ring about 180 pounds. There was rumors that he walked into the ring at 82 or 83 against the Canelo fight. Like, he could easily make 68. Like, it's not a problem at all. Easily make 68. Like, if you watch the Joe Smith Jr. fight and the Lenny Castillo fight, he's clearly the smaller guy in the ring by 10 pounds. So he kind of, and I talked to Kathy Duva about this too. And I said, he's fighting in the wrong weight class. And that's why he's not getting knockouts. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter because he's the best light heavyweight in the world. I'm not going to argue with it. Better Be Bivol fight. They're 1 and 2. He can beat everyone in the division minus maybe Better Be. Okay. But are the fights at 75 really more lucrative than 68? That's what, it never really made sense for me why he's fighting at 75. The fights at 75 aren't more lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
Better Be's a great fight. It's not really a big money fight for anybody, right? That's not maybe in Russia, but it's not a big money fight here. Just like when he fought Vazdik, it's a great fight. I'm into it.
Hey,
but it's not a big money fight.
The ruble's up big time right now lately.
The ruble is up big time. You're right about
big
that.
Big time, man. It being a big money fight in Russia means a lot more now than it did 3 years ago. But I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially just obviously I don't want to get into a large tangent here about the geopolitical situation with Russia, the US and Ukraine. But that is going to play a factor in boxing at some point. The amount of sanctions that have been levied. I don't know for a fact, but come on. There's guaranteed at least a few boxing promoters or investors from Russia in that mix of sanction lists, right? That has to be, Gary, right?
Did you notice that they announced that Bivol was from California, not Russia?
I did notice that. I found that to be quite hilarious. Dude. Shout out to when Canelo was asked about it, though. He was like, I don't even think about this shit. It's just
That's what I'm saying. It's boxing. It's boxing.
I love it. Anyways, but yeah, Better Even Bivol are both Russian, right? In terms of citizenship. So Fuck, that would be a big fight. Like in a different time, like no one would be thinking like, oh, that'd be weird to have a big fight there. Like, but we should have a big fight there. That'd be cool. Like, Bivol better be if I'm like their home country. Fuck, go for it. Absolutely.
You're so unpopular in 2022 for saying that. Like that's like the least popular thing you could say.
Gary, you know me.
I'm just saying.
Okay. But digressing. Also on the card, quickly, Montana Love picked up a win. Shakram Giasov picked up a win as well. Mark Castro picked up another win. Didn't look that great, to be honest. Relly Zhang picked up a win. Shout out to Comrade Zhang. Who else? Alexis Espino picked up a loss against Aaron Silva. 2 undefeated guys going at it. I really liked that fight. That was an enjoyable matchup. And there were some other guys on the card that I don't really know. Gary, any other thoughts on the event?
You got to give me better undercards, right? Like Eddie Hearn told me the pay-per-view model was dead and DAZN killed it, and then he gave me a $50 pay-per-view. Great main event, no issue with the main event. Canelo versus Bivol. I thought Canelo would win easily, but it's a good fight. You got to give me something in the co-main. That was awful, by the way. You can seriously underpay women. Why don't you just give me a good women's fight in the co-main event? You got to pay them a lot of.
Don't give him any hints, Gary.
I'm just like, get women are all 108 pounders and just give me a good co-main event. You don't got to pay them.
Christian, I see that comment and I see the JK afterwards. I'm gonna leave it. It's somewhat funny. I somewhat want to respond to it because you know me. You know how I get riled up. But anyways, digressing. Because Putin, Hitler is not comparable. But digressing. Where are we at? If you want more of my political takes, Trending Down Network on YouTube or Twitch. I should do a show soon.
I until he gets 3 strikes for whatever.
Whatever happens.
So catch it now while you can until YouTube's whatever. I'm not saying that. Whatever. I'm not saying anything.
Chris was saying, "LOL, love you, bro." That was good. I will admit it was funny. I enjoyed that one. That was good. Moving on to last night's big marquee event. Jamel Charlo defeating Brian Castano via KO in the 10th round. Not only was this fight better than the first fight, which I think is somewhat hard to do when you have a really good first fight like that. It ended in a finish. It ended in probably a fighter being in the pound for pound discussion now. Undisputed champion. Like it was just, it marked off like every check mark I wanted for like a satisfying fight. And again, like it's probably one of those fights, if you watch it not live, it may not have the same level of suspense. Because I felt, Gary, I don't know about you, but me personally, like every combination these guys were getting into, I thought this could be it. Like one of them's going to get clipped here, and it could be over instantly. And it was like that for 10 rounds. It was a very dramatic fight. Great action from both guys. Charlo, though, clearly learned more from the first fight, clearly adapted more. His defense was far more on point. He was slipping shots, creating opportunities to get his counters off, and made it work. And obviously finished him with a really short, left hook at the end to drop him for the first knockdown. And the knockdown after that was, I think, egregious. Like we didn't need to see that. He was done after that first knockout. You could tell. But Gary, your thoughts on Jamel Charlo, your own Texas boy? I mean, come on.
We could, within a couple months of each other, have 2 divisions, 147 and 154, undisputed by Texas fighters. We just need to get that Spence Crawford fight, which I do think we're going to get. But what
in the same gym?
In the same gym.
Dude.
They weren't lying when they said strap season.
Derek James is coach of the year. I'm sorry. Like, there's no way to describe it.
If you go to Texas Boxing, I have an interview with Coach James right before the Spence fight, and he told me that the game plan was the same, and that they were gonna, he was gonna get going and he was gonna win the fight in the last couple of rounds. And when he said that, I was like, wow, that's not a good game plan. Then I talked to Jesus Ramos, did an interview with Jesus Ramos. He told me Castano was gonna win. He's got interest in the fight, right? Like that's his weight class. He's keeping an eye on it. He told me Castano was going to win. I talked to Shane Mosley Jr. in the airport after he fought San Antonio. He told me Castano was going to definitely win. So, like, okay, James tells me that they're not going to change the game plan. Ramos, Mosley, they're all telling me that Castano's going to win. So I switched my vote. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick Castano. And then Charlo beats him. I thought Charlo was the better fighter. I scored the first fight for Castano, but I thought Charlo could fix more things and he could win the rematch. But everyone talked me out of it, and I picked Castano.
Dude, I feel like it was one of those things where I was obviously, for those who don't know, I think Gary knows this a little bit, that I was in the gym with Castano quite a bit before this fight. I have a fighter or two, 3 actually, on my card for June 4th that are in his gym. 2 of them that are trained by his father as well. One of them was on the card. He was on I think the untelevised portion though. Luciano Sanchez, who's a cruiserweight from Argentina. He was on the card with Castano as well. But I got to see a lot of the sparring and some training from Castano as well. And he looked in shape. Sparring looked good. Like everything looked like he was ready. And I think in the back of my head, I was a little bit like you, where I was like, I kind of edged it towards Castano in the first fight, the more I think about it. And everyone around me is picking Castano. So I picked Castano. Even though I thought, Charlo's probably the better boxer of the 2. He may have more, power per punch.
Yeah.
He probably does. It's going to be close still. And it at times it was close. The level of dramatic sort of flurries from both guys made it close, it seemed. But Charlo really came away strong here in this fight. Like it was clear the story of the fight, to use the Max Kellerman line right back in the day. The story of the fight was that Charlo adapted, and Charlo was winning the rounds, even the close rounds. Like Charlo was able to edge them. When Castano would come on strong for a minute in the round, Charlo would clean up the last 30 seconds really strong. Like he just did all the right things. It was a fantastic performance. Like it was one of those performances that not only is the fight obviously for an undisputed championship, so therefore you have to kind of think of them in the pound for pound sense, but the performance on top of it solidified Jermell Charlo in that pound for pound top 10. Like I don't know where he is, to be honest, but he's in there. He has to be.
I gotta bump Bam out of my top 10 now because I gotta put Bivol and little Charlo in. I had to take Bam off my list.
Dude,
I have to take Donaire off too, I think.
You put Donaire on the list?
Yeah, because there were guys I kept like I didn't have Charlo or Castano on the list because I said I'll just put the winner on, right? Like I took Chocolatito and Estrada off because I said they're gonna fight again. I'll just put the winner because I thought Chocolatito won the fight, but how do I put Chocolatito on my pound for pound list when he technically lost to Estrada? And then how do I put Estrada on the list when I think he lost? You know what I'm saying, to Chocolatito? I said they'll fight again. They end up not fighting again. And then Bam jumped up 2 weight classes. But if Bam beats Rungvisai, Bam goes back on the list.
That's a great fight.
That's a great fight.
Is that fight in Dallas?
San Antonio.
San Antonio. Are you going?
I am. Bam's the homie.
Me and the girlfriend were thinking about going to Texas for that one. We're like, if it was in Dallas, we're for sure going because, like, you're there, food's in the area, like, yeah. Why not? But San Antonio,
Foo lives about an hour and a half away. Foo lives in a town called Wichita Falls. I mean, the nearest big city is Dallas, right? It's not. He doesn't live in the Dallas area. Like he doesn't live in what they call the Metroplex.
Yeah, but it'd be like, let's say, like you fly into LA and you have to drive to like Lancaster or some bullshit. Like Laguna.
We have a town called Lancaster, Texas, which is like south of Dallas and like in the country. So it's like the same, like it's like an hour away in the country. I think that's actually where Errol Spence lives now because Errol Spence got rid of his city life after he crashed his car, got a bunch of horses, moved out to the country.
That was smart. Get rid of the car, get a horse.
Get a horse.
It's hard to pass
some horses, some more cows, got a couple of chickens.
How do you flip a horse while you're drunk? You can't. That horse is alive. It's not drunk.
No,
okay?
The horse is good. Yeah.
There's nothing you can do. That horse will kick you off. But think about it. Then you're fine still. You're not, flipping the car 20 million times. Santiago in the chat saying Charlo worked the body. and did everything he needed to make his shots count. Took advantage of the hook and sapped the power from Castano. I mean, it was a fantastic performance from Charlo. It definitely put him above probably his brother in terms of like where they're at right now in their career. Let's just be honest. Like Jamal, Big Charlo, what's he doing? What's the next fight even lined up? What is it?
It's Salisky, right?
That's horrific. It's not as bad as David Benavidez, David Lemieux.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. Lemieux can at least crack. Like Lemieux is not going to win the fight, but Lemieux has charm to him because he can hit.
They both suck.
They never got. I've always thought Lemieux. So I remember watching Lemieux lose on ESPN2 on his come up. Like he was supposed to be like the next great puncher. It's like this guy sucks. I've never liked Lemieux. And they're like, him and Triple G is going to be fireworks. Yeah, on one side. Like, that's not a competitive fight. Like, Lemieux sucks.
Hey, the Sunday Dom fight was really good.
Yeah.
It was a great fight.
And Dom might suck too, but you're right, yeah.
I mean,
I like Dom. He's an entertaining fighter. Like, he always gives you a good fight. Like, he gives you your money's worth, but he might not be that good. Like, we might have overrated him because he's fun to watch.
He did go into the Olympics like the next year when pros were allowed and then get like knocked out.
What's that? Like,
it was fucking hilarious. It was so good. Digressing though. What else was on that card? Oh, I mean, what's next for Charlie? You want to move up? What are you thinking?
I want a trilogy, honestly, but I don't think we're gonna get that because I think there's more lucrative fights. You wouldn't want to see that again, I guess, because Charlo knocked him out. You knocked him out. There's no question anymore. Like it's done with.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first fight was so good. Who wouldn't want to see it again?
If Castano builds himself back up, I don't mind seeing it again. But like you said, there's finality to this fight. Like Charlo not only like won almost he did win most of the rounds, and then he knocked him out. Like there's not much I need to see here with this matchup anymore. I'd rather him go up to 160 and see what happens there. Like, wouldn't it be hilarious if Jamel moves up to 160 and fights Andrade instead of Jamal? Like, wouldn't that be hilarious? Like, obviously that's not going to happen. But the issue is with also like there's not much options here. Like honestly, like at 154 and 160 in the PBC side of it, it's not like there's tons of matchups.
Do you think the young cats coming up at 54, Ramos and the Towering Inferno, Fundora, do you think they're ready yet? Because those would be the fights, right? Because he's gone through all the veterans now. He's gone through the big names. Are those guys? Are those young kids? Are they ready to fight for a world title? I think they are. I think Charles obviously an excellent fighter. I think he has flaws, and I think 21-year-old or 20-year-old Jesus Ramos might be able to expose it. I don't know how anyone prepares to fight Fundora. Like, how do you spar someone who's 6'7"? Like, I mean, he's such a unique fighter. Like, I don't know that he wins, but he's going to be trouble for anyone because he's 6'7". And Ramos, I think, is the real deal. I don't know if Ramos is ready, and I don't know if they would give him that fight yet. But those are the fights I would look at and those really aren't lucrative fights. So why would he stay there, right? Like, he's not going to fight Spence. I know he said he would. He's not going to fight Spence. So if Spence wins and then moves up to 54, he's not going to fight Spence. So there's really no more lucrative fights for him at 54. So the logical move would be to go to 60.
Fundora, from a meritocracy standpoint, right, to use that term I used earlier, probably has earned a title shot. But I think he gets iced by Charlo at some point. Like, this is also Fundora that we saw go to war, not in his last fight with Lubin, of course, but it was, a fight or two ago that he was in a war, he had a struggle, and he was hit a lot. I haven't seen that defensive fix be made. I just saw him overwhelm Lubin, who, let's be honest, can be overwhelmed.
Charlo will win the fight if he doesn't get knocked out.
See, I don't think he gets knocked out. I mean, I think Charlo's been battle tested enough.
Like Fundora, I get it. He's fluid. There's a lot of things wrong with Fundora, but he's 6'7", right? Like, it's how do you? I mean, he just cuts the ring. It's not even just he can keep you at bay. He's so long, and he can just cuts the ring off, and he's back on you throwing punches. You can't get him off you because he just takes up so much space. Like, you can't get any separation from him.
Yes, but I mean, Charlo has much better defense than Lubin. Much better.
He's a better fighter for
offense.
sure. Charlo's definitely a better fighter.
I
I
mean,
would pick Charlo, but
I can see Fundora having success, but I just cannot see him winning right now. I just can't. He would have to beat someone a little more established than Lubin, like a Tony Harrison, maybe. Someone like that can adapt to him. It's more multifaceted in their skills. Lubin's a little bit one-dimensional. Lubin's a little bit questionable as well in terms of being battle tested. I think at this point in time, we can kind of safely say that he doesn't have the durability to really make it in the top 5. Does Fundora have that? I don't know yet. In the one fight I saw him get punched a lot, it did not look good to me. I could see guys in the top definitely taking advantage of that and winning. I'll be honest, even though they probably haven't earned it as much as Fundora, Tim Tszyu, I think, would be a far tougher matchup for Charlo than Fundora right now. Like, Tim Tszyu looks more polished and ready for that fight, and he looks like he could maybe win a few rounds but still lose. I could see Fundora just getting washed, like just being way too young for this fight right now. I give him another year or two. Like, let him fight a top 10 guy before he fights the undisputed champion. Maybe fight Castano at some point. Take another tune-up and then fight Castano coming off a win. That would make a lot more sense to me. And then going straight in there with Charlo.
What about Ramos?
Him fighting Ramos directly?
I mean, Ramos fights on the 10 card. He fights Lucas Santa Maria, which I don't think I think Santa Maria is a good fighter, but he's got a record of like 13-3-1. So if he loses, they're gonna, if Ramos beats him up, they're just gonna say, well, he was never that good, right? Mm-hmm. I don't really understand why you'd make that fight. I don't think I think it's a good test for him. I think he obviously passed it. But I don't why Lucas Santa Maria at this particular stage of their career.
It's a bad matchup. It is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind Ramos and Fundora. I just think if you're PBC, you don't do that because it kills off a prospect in a sense, right? It kills off a contender, not necessarily a prospect, a contender. You want him lined up if Charlo is going to stay here for the next year or two. You want them both lined up for him, just to be honest. But anyways, what else was on that card? Of course, Jared Ennis versus Castillo Clayton. Gary, I know you want to talk about this one at length. Boots is the real deal. I might even pick him against Crawford if they were matched up today. Is that sacrilegious, Gary? Should I be tried at The Hague?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think it's unreasonable. He's on a warpath now, right? I remember talking to Eddie Hearn and Anthony Lever before the Bam fight, and I said that Eddie Hearn said he didn't know really what he had in Bam. Devin Haney told him he was really good. He's really, really good, right? And he said he really hadn't seen enough of him, which is understandable, right? Because a lot of his fights were, he had a couple fights in San Antonio that were off TV. He fought really early on undercards on the Wilder Fury fight. So it's reasonable not to know what you really have. As in, he could beat everyone at 115 right now, with the exception of maybe one person, Chocolatito, right? Maybe. I mean, Boots is on a warpath. He's destroying everyone. I've always said, let's make that Virgil Ortiz fight. I don't know who wins. Maybe we should chill on that fight now. I don't know. He's fighting established guys. Clayton's a good fighter. We knew Clayton wasn't going to win the fight, but we said that's a good challenge. That's a good step up. That's a good fight for him. That guy should offer a lot of resistance. He got blown out in 2 rounds. Boots might be something different. It's the first time you saw a Greek Freak or LeBron James, you're like, wow, right? This is if he keeps improving like you think he should, this is going to be something special. Boots might be that. Boots might be one of the great fighters. Now, it's way too early to tell, but he's blowing out really, really good fighters and not beating them. I mean, just demolishing them better than Verge is doing. So, I don't think it's unreasonable if you watch Boots and you see what he's doing to pick him against anybody. You want to pick him against Crawford? You want to pick him against Spence? I don't think I'm not saying I would. I mean, it's not unreasonable. at all. It's not unreasonable at all to pick. Do you see what he's doing to people?
I mean, it's devastating. Like, it is the only thing in recent memory that I can probably compare it to is like seeing like maybe like Spence knock out people on the way up, right? Whereas like clearly this guy's gonna be a champion at some point, right? You're hearing all the stories of him sparring like Mayweather, etc. Like you're seeing him knock out former champions, like it's nothing. That's close to it. But Boots does it almost to a different level. I don't know if I'm wrong here. Obviously, people in the chat have been watching for a long time as well. Like, I just get that feeling that like he's gonna be the next guy in this division. Like, it's just whenever his time is, it's gonna be his time. And I don't know yet the powers that be are gonna slow down that progress or ramp it up. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Is he still with Cameron Duncan?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Because that determines a lot here, guys. Like, honestly speaking, like look at Andrade. Like, he was with Cameron Duncan for so long, and that stagnated his career for so long. And then when he was finally able to get out of it, his career was so stagnated that he was a non-commodity for all the other big names that were his peers, right? Like, honestly speaking, I hope that doesn't happen with Boots. I don't think it will with the way he's being placed right now as of late. But that is a recent thing where he's been getting better placement on cards, higher, profile cards. I hope that the powers that be don't slow that progress. I'll say that because he is ready for like the winner of Crawford Spence. Like if that winner stays at 147, you know what I mean? Like he's ready for if Spence moves on and doesn't fight Crawford, he's ready for the Crawford fight. He's ready for the IBF vacant belt if Spence moves up. Like he's ready for something, whatever it is. Whether he fights Thurman for that vacant belt, whether he fights Crawford, whether he fights Spence, I just need to see him in that top 5 echelon because I think he's gonna beat most of them, if not all of them. He seems special. He seems more special than anyone else right now in boxing, except for maybe Shakur.
Bam.
You're right. I apologize.
I always forget about the little guys. The little guys.
You do naturally because of little. You just overlook them.
No, but I would say yeah. Like if you're saying pound for pound, 5 years out, right? Like the way too early mock draft. Give me your top 3 or 4 pound for pound fighters. Shakur Stevenson's probably 1 because he's gonna have the best competition to beat. He'll have multi-world titles. Boots and Bam, I would say would be your top 3. And maybe Devin Haney 4. Like if we're talking 5, what's your pound for pound 5 years from now?
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be Boots, Shakur, in no order right now. Boots, Shakur, Bam. I mean, Haney's looking better. That Joseph Diaz fight was fantastic, but again, Joseph Diaz, a guy that probably doesn't have his head in the game right now. If you haven't paid attention to the news, I don't know. I mean, he's probably saying Junto. What's his name? I forget which Japanese fighter that is. Heath, please remind me, Heath. Newey probably will still be in there because he's only gonna be like 32 at that time.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be an interesting pound for pound in 5 years. But I think Boots is gonna cement himself. You say that Shakur has probably the best competition to like in front of him. But imagine if Boots like beats a Crawford Spence.
Yeah, he can have those names too, right? I mean, he'd have to fight him, before they went up to 54, or he went up to 50.
If he beats one of them, he's automatically pound for pound number 1.
For sure. Absolutely, yeah.
Like the hype will go so off the rails if he beats one of those names. Even if he beats like a Thurman. Imagine if he goes in there and washes Keith Thurman for like a vacant IBF belt because Spence moves up. The hype is going to be insane. I hope it translates to like marketability and him being able to profit off of his career and his brand. Because I do get that uneasy feeling that he's going to be a lesser level star, even compared to like a Spence and Crawford. I don't see that type of attention on him, even compared to those guys on their way up, right, Gary? Like, Spence was getting primetime slots on like NBC in front of like 6 million people after the Olympics, fighting like Chris Algieri at like 18-0. You know what I mean? Like the
He did get
opportunity.
like 6 million. How many people do you think he just left? Because it was after the USA gold medal basketball game, right? And that's what it was on after. How many people
Yeah,
think he just left the TV on? Like if you
dude,
go on after the Super Bowl, I'm
it
not
doesn't
just
matter.
yeah.
It doesn't matter, man. I'm telling you, there's no way Spence gets to even selling 200,000 pay-per-views on average without that.
Probably, yeah.
Because think about Crawford. Think about all the opportunities he's been afforded late in his career that didn't amount to anything. Because in the beginning of his career, when all that hype is the most important, because I think people don't understand this in boxing. People think that like once you become a champion, like that's when like you can start becoming a star.
Crawford
No,
was another Cameron Duncan guy at that point in his career. He came up with
yes,
Cameron Duncan.
another Cameron Duncan guy. God
And
fucking damn that guy.
he was supposed to he filled in and he fought what's his name? What was the guy that knocked out Amir Khan, the Colombian fighter?
Breedis Prescott.
Yeah, and Cameron Duncan didn't want to put him in. He thought he wasn't ready for him.
I
It
know.
was on HBO. It was on a co-main event, and Crawford was like, "You have to give me this fight. You have to give me this fight." And he went in and destroyed him, right? But like Cameron Duncan wanted not to put him in that fight on a major card on HBO.
When you become a champion, that's when you need to be able to capitalize on built up stardom. Okay. So guys like Spence were built up before they became a champion to where like once they became a champion, the transition to pay-per-view or big venues and making millions of dollars was easy. Crawford really didn't have that. Boots doesn't have that right now. Like imagine if he gets a Crawford fight tomorrow, Gary, and he beats Crawford. Is he in any position to go sell out like a major arena?
No,
He's not. And that's a little bit, again, worrisome. It makes me uneasy because that's when the powers that be can throttle you as a talent because you're not going to make them money. So why would I kill my moneymaker for you when you're not going to be able to replace that value? Like that's just the cold-hearted reality of the sport. But I'm excited for Boots. Like I am. Like I wasn't really bought in 100% yet, but I thought Clayton was going to give him issues. I thought Clayton was going to give him more issues than Mean Machine gave Ortiz. I compared it to that in my head. And a little bit of Clayton not looking like he was really wanting to be there, but it didn't matter because Boots washed him. So he watched an undefeated prospect with like all of his fights by knockout. So I'm pretty shocked by this, to be quite honest. I am fully on the Boots train, and he will beat Crawford within the year. I'm betting it now. Gary, any other thoughts?
not on that. No, we'll,
What else do
can
we
move
have?
on.
Also on that card, nothing of note.
Yeah,
Right, nothing of note.
just those two fights. Yeah,
It was just those two fights. Another big fight that we have not talked about, another fight of the year contender, along with I would say Charlo Castano, is Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, and Gary might say robbery of the year as well.
there's worse robberies. There's worse robberies than that. I mean, it was a bad decision, but what happened to Eddie Vasquez with Raymond Ford's way worse. Like, I mean, look, Katie Taylor wasn't outclassed. He just lost more rounds than you won. Clearly,
It was a great fight though, Gary.
it was a great fight. It was an amazing fight.
It was a fantastic fight. It really, I think, exceeded all expectations for me personally as a fan. I was a little bit concerned about this fight and it being promoted a certain way, it being pushed as the biggest women's fight of all time, which I don't know if it's true. Just being honest.
Christy Martin versus Layla Ali would be the other one.
Yeah, and even in hindsight, that might still be bigger. You know what I mean?
But that fight was stupid because they weren't even close to the same weight class, right? Like I get they had to make it because those were the names that really. I know women's boxing had been around before that, but it really wasn't, right? Like not in a mainstream way. Like those were the two names that kind of put it in front of people. So they had to put them in a ring. But you got in a ring, and you're like, oh boy, like this is like Like they're not even close to the same weight class. It's like if Andre Ward got in the ring with Floyd Mayweather, it's like who's better? Well, we're not going to determine that by this fight. Like they're not even close to the same size.
To be fair, though, Amanda Serrano has fought in weight classes like 3, 4, 5 weight classes lower than 135, and recently as well. So you get a little bit of that here as well. But that's going to be with women's boxing, I think. Like,
Yeah,
I think,
for at least for now.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
for now, when we get big fights, you're going to have a lot of them end up being cross-divisional fights.
Well, we're talking about who could be the best fight for Clarissa Shields. The Cass Killer, but I understand she fights at 47 and
How
Shields could
dare
at
you?
54.
How
But
dare
they're
you,
like
Gary?
look at McCaskill.
Gary, how dare you forget Savannah Marshall? Okay, the true threat to Clarissa Shields. How dare you?
All right. After she fights Savannah Marshall, then she can go fight McCaskill later that night, right? But she's gonna beat McCaskill because she's better than McCaskill, but she's also way big. I know they're technically only one weight class apart, but Jessica McCaskill, I've met her. She's a little woman. She's not big. I've met Clarissa Shields too. She's kind of ripped up. She's kind of muscular. She's a lot bigger than Jessica McCaskill. A lot bigger. It's.
Well, yeah, I mean, McCaskill started at 140.
So I get she fights at 47, but she's little for that size.
Shields started at 168. I mean, it's just different. But digressing back to Taylor Serrano. I mean, Serrano was landing the better shots, the more devastating shots. She hurt Taylor far more, and she was so close to a knockdown in a few rounds, I want to say, and just couldn't get the knockdown. I think if she got those knockdowns, she would have won the fight. But it's Katie Taylor, and it's a matchroom event. It is what it is. Let's just be honest. Katie Taylor always gets the benefit of the decisions. And this was another decision that probably shouldn't have gone her way, which is now 5, if we're being honest.
It's at least 3. It's at least 3. I knew this was going to happen. Why did I pick? Unless she could knock her out, which was going to be difficult because she's.
But good. She almost did.
2 3-minute rounds if it's over, by the way. But whatever. They don't have 3 minutes. That's why it's hard to pick a knockout. If she can't knock her out, how's she really going to get a decision? We know that Katie Taylor's going to get the decision if it's even relatively close. It's a black eye because it's such a good fight. It's such a good fight. What if they would have scored Ali Frazier 1 for Ali? It kind of puts a black eye on it. It's a great fight. It's a close fight. Frazier won the fight, right? It's the same thing with Chocolatito versus Strada. It's a great fight. It's an amazing fight. Chocolatito won the fight. Give it to Chocolatito. This was a great fight. Give it to the rightful winner. We all know who won that fight. Rob I had it 6-4. No, you didn't. No, you did not. Not honestly. You were trying to find 6 rounds to give her. Is what you were trying to do. And if you're judging a fight, you shouldn't be doing that. So who won the rounds?
And you know me, Gary. I'm not a Amanda Serrano fan, but she won the fight. She did. It's okay. And it felt. It was one of those when the scorecards are being read. I'm like, they're gonna fucking do it. They're not gonna give it to Serrano. I'm like, yep, it happened. It is what it is. I mean, it's boxing. We love and hate this sport. It's a love-hate relationship, Gary. Bittersweet. Bittersweet science, as some say.
Just go to the replay and just change the round that you got wrong. In basketball when someone steps on the line, right? They go back in the next timeout and they're like, okay, he was on line. That's a 2-point, not 3. Just go back and look at the judge nope, you got that wrong. We're going to change your scorecard now. We're going to flip that 10-9. I'm joking. Obviously, you wouldn't do that, but
you can.
To me, it puts a black eye on the sport. It's such a good fight. We all know who won that fight, and it wasn't Katie Taylor.
Yeah. Also on the card, Liam Smith defeating Jesse Vargas via TKO in the 10th round. Franchon Cruz Dezern defeating Elan Cederos via unanimous decision. Galal Yefe defeating Miguel Cartagena via 2nd round. Was it TKO, I think? Emma Williams. I didn't see this fight, Gary. I'm actually curious if you saw it.
I didn't. And there's no getting in contact with. If anyone has any way of getting in contact with Emma Williams, let me know. He doesn't have any social media. He doesn't have the same phone number. If anyone get in contact with Emma Williams, let me know.
Dude, I wonder
which is probably for the best. Don't talk to it. Just focus. blinders.
But he defeated Cordell Booker, man, who's another undefeated guy via first round TKO. I didn't see the fight, guys. So anyone in the chat, let me know how it looked. Was it a fishy knockout? What happened? Rashid Maddie defeating some guy named Joe Hernandez. Sky Nicholson defeating somebody named Davis. And some guy named Khalil Coe defeating William Langston. Big fights there. But I'm curious about the Emma Williams fight because I didn't see that one. But anyways, digressing. What else do we have here on the lineup? Shakur Stevenson defeating Oscar Valdez via, I mean, come on, pure domination. Did Valdez win a round?
I bet one or two.
And those are rounds just Shakur just took off.
Valdez actually did better than I thought. He still lost almost every round.
Right? Really?
Like, I didn't think Valdez was even going to be competitive in this fight. Like the only Jesus Chavez fought, and Jesus Chavez was a really good fighter, fought Mayweather, right? And he exerted so much effort just to kind of keep the fight even through 4 rounds that just Floyd destroyed him. I kind of thought that was going to happen here. Like maybe he gets a round or two early, but he's got to exert so much energy to do it that you can't possibly keep that up. And once you fade, you're going to lose. But I just thought Shakur basically dominated the fight.
I wonder, like how they're gonna be able to like market Shakur Stevenson, as such a defensive-minded fighter, right? Because even like Floyd, when he was young, was knocking out.
That's small weight class. He knocked people out.
Like Pernell Whitaker had some big knockouts, early in his career as well. Like even like guys that we think of as defensively sounded, more on the boring side, I guess, for like the casual fans. They had a run up of really exciting fights where they were able to like garner like hype and attention and such, right? Shakur has some of that due to his connections, right? You have obviously Top Rank, which doesn't have a lot of big chess pieces on the board right now. Let's just be honest about it. The only one they really have is Tyson Fury, because Crawford's who knows what's happening with Crawford. Shakur Stevenson is probably the next guy. Loma took an L. Teofimo Lopez is going fucking nuts lately. Like, God knows what's happening with him, right? He took an L against Kambosos. Like, what are you going to do when you're Top Rank? You don't have much to work with. So they're pushing him quite a bit. You have the James Prince connection, which is a very great connection to have in the entertainment industry. That's why you see a lot of celebrities at Shakur fights. When, honestly, if he wasn't with James Prince, they wouldn't be there. If we're just being honest. But he is a kind of he's a purist fighter, right, Gary? Like, yeah. Shakur is very entertaining if you just want to see a guy dominate range, dominate timing, and just pick you apart at will. Not really looking for a finish. If it comes, it comes. But he's content to just dominate, these like 3 categories of boxing. And just, again, dominate in the truest sense of the word. I don't know what the long-term marketability is for him. I do wonder about that because he's so young. Like you said, he's in these divisions where you think about he moves up to 135. There's a great row of guys there for him to beat and to really establish himself as somebody. Does he become like a pay-per-view draw or a guy that can hold down MSG or Staples Center? I'm not going to call it the new name that they renamed it. It's still Staples Center to me. It's like StubHub is still.
Well, it's something that's crypto. What's it called now?
The Crypto.com Center.
Crypto.com, yeah.
God, awful. I heard it on the radio the other day, like the radio ad, and I'm like, what? What? No.
It's like the StubHub. I don't know, like a Dignity Health Alliance Center. No, that's the StubHub. If you're real old school, it's the Home Depot Center.
Yeah, but it really only got its like luster as the StubHub Center.
Well, Paul Williams versus Margarito was at the Home Depot Center. It was still the Home Depot Center then.
It was still the Home Depot Center then?
Mm-hmm. Wow. And then after that, like, they changed it to the StubHub, and that's when it became the Punch Bowl, and they had all these great fights here.
But then, like 3 or 4 years with like no good fights there, it felt like, and then finally we got one with Charlo Castano. Thank you. Like, think about it, like when they put like the fight of the years at the venue, like the last one they listed was like 2016, and that's 5 years ago, six years ago now. Shit. Punch Bowl has been lacking lately. It's because they changed the name. You can't do that. It puts a hex on the venue. You just can't do it. Okay.
I'm still call it the Punch Bowl. I like that.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Locals definitely call it StubHub still. Like that's what we call it. But digressing. Shakur was dominant. I mean, I think he's going to be able to beat anyone in this division and then move up to 135 and potentially beat everyone there. Few question marks with like if Lopez can figure out whatever it is that he's been doing lately. And like Loma. Like those are the two names I think that could really give Shakur a lot of issues for kind of obvious reasons. But Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, I mean, who else of note there? Javante Davis, even. I'm picking Shakur to beat them all. Is that crazy?
No, I mean, you're gonna see him move up and see how he looks, but he's 5'9", so he's not gonna be short. He's not gonna be too short for the 135 weight class. Like he'll be fine. He's such a master of hit and not get hit, right? Like it was like Whitaker, and then Roy Jones for a while. Like the obvious pick is that guy by unanimous decision. Like Mayweather. Like what was the pick? Mayweather by unanimous decision. Like it's getting to that point with Shakur. What's the obvious pick? Shakur Stevenson by unanimous decision. Like that, just bet your money on that, right? Like, I mean, he's not going to lose 7 rounds to anyone. So now you just got to try to knock him out. And how do you knock out someone you can't put any hands on, right? So it just becomes. I don't know. He becomes just again, and the style is not going to really market him that well. He's got to run his mouth like Floyd and make himself marketable in that sense. And like he kind of has to become like, half the people love you and the other half hate you, but everyone wants to see you. He's got to kind of do that if he wants to be a big time financial, draw in the sport.
Quickly, because I have to head out of here. I have to get the kids to bed because I can hear them acting up in the back. I know you probably can't, but it's close to bedtime. I definitely need to go corral the chaos behind me.
Matt Corral, he's from Long Beach.
What?
Quarterback for Ole Miss. He's from Long Beach. You're from Long Beach, right?
Yes, I am from Long Beach.
He beat up Wayne Gretzky's kid. He went to the same private school.
They like physical.
Not
fight.
The girl, not the one that's married to the golfer. A son, apparently. It was now would be 22. And and the Gretzkys were big donors to the school. And Matt Corral, who's the quarterback for Ole Miss, who got drafted by who did he get drafted by? I forget. Beat the heck out of him in high school, so they had to transfer him to a different school because the Gretzkys gave a lot of money.
That's hilarious. That's not, it's not as good, but it's close to the story of Immortal Technique beating up Lin-Manuel Miranda back in high school because they went to the same high school together. And Lin-Manuel Miranda is the guy that did the Hamlet musical, which is a god awful musical. It's so bad. The music in it's atrocious. Like it's filth. But Immortal Technique saying, yeah, I used to throw that kid in a trash can all the time. Fucking hilarious, man. So good.
He got drafted by Carolina, by the way. The Carolina Panthers.
Santiago saying thoughts on Kambosos getting stripped of his WBA belt before fight week is even upon us. Got wonder his thoughts on going into fight week with winning one less belt. I mean, it happens. It's the WBA. It's one of the most dirty belts out there. I mean, they're all dirty, to be honest. But WBA is
it's time to cancel the WBA. Why do they do this? Like, we're gonna have undisputed. Like, why do this now? Just like say, if the winner has 60 days to negotiate with mandatory. If at that point he does it, then we'll strip him. But like, why do you just make this not for undisputed now? It's just stupid.
It's the sanctioning bodies. They are stupid. Also on the Shakur card was Keyshawn Davis and the great Nico Ali Walsh, both picking up wins. Obviously, the Nico Ali Walsh win was far more important. We all know that. Also, we just quickly.
Nico Walsh has a higher ceiling than Campbell Hatton.
That's probably true. I can see that. I co-sign that take, Gary. I like that hot take. That was a good one. Rob's gonna love that one in the morning.
I like that Ali Wallace knows he's there because of who his grandfather is. I feel like Campbell Hatton thinks he's a good fighter. Like Campbell Hatton thinks he's like, there because he's good. Like I'd be fighting here if my name was Campbell Smith and I didn't know Ricky Hatton.
Also, Gilberto Ramirez beat up Dominic Bossel in 4 rounds. It was whatever. William Zepeda and Rene Alvarado went to fucking war. That was amazing. If you haven't seen that fight, I highly recommend going back to the Zone or like Daily Motion or YouTube and finding it, and watching that fight, because that was really good. That was worth watching that event just for that matchup alone. It was if it wasn't on the same night as Charlo Castano, it would have been the fight of the night for like all the events. But Charlo Castano happened. That's what happens. Also that same night, last night, was the Triller event. I know everyone was really excited for that one, with the Vargas dynasty and the Pulev dynasty as well, and the return of Sergey Kovalev. I had this card on, but I can honestly say I have no take and no comment on it because I don't remember anything that happened here. It was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad event. I remember just listening to what's his name, the commentator guy he talks like this. He's very animated. Mexican dude. What's his name? He does PBC a lot.
Ray Flores. Ray Flores.
Yes. I can't stand him.
If you ever meet him, he's a really good guy. Like a really cool dude. But I get what you're saying.
Like it's one of those where like it's too much at times. And on Triller, he puts it all, man. And it's like, it was funny that one time when like you were all drunk and high with like Al Bernstein. Like that was funny, Ray Flores, when you were like super hyped. This is a Kovalev and Pulev card with like the Vargas sons. Let's keep it down here. Let's keep it down here, please. Anyways, Gary, any other thoughts before we head out of here?
No, now that would be a good time to head out. I think it was a good show.
Gary, I love you, man. I appreciate you.
Follow me all forms of social media. Texas boxing scene. Please like, share, and subscribe. All proceeds go to autism research and recovery. It is May 15th, 2022. Texas is still not a country. Make Texas a country again. From Texas to the world, thank you and God bless.
Dude, Gary being an anarchist and calling for another state to be formed is crazy. Just gotta say that, man. Just gotta say that. Crazy. You're like, that's a good point. Good point. Anyways, hit the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff. I am Matthew Hunter. Find me, Matt Hunter MCR, all social media platforms. Gary over there at 3D Boxing Blog and Texas Boxing Scene on YouTube. What else? I do want to do another Trending Now network show soon, but I just don't have time right now. I don't know when I can do that. Obviously after the event, so after June 4th, my schedule is going to be a lot more clear for the few weeks after that, but it's like crunch time. We got like 3 weeks, got like 600 more tickets to sell. We're on it. Anyways, remember at all times, fuck the police, and especially now, free Palestine. Have a good night. Peace.